Kia ora koutou. Nei rā te mihi kia kōrua, Tim, Catherine. Nei rā te mihi mō tō kōrero I tēnei ahi. So just welcome here, Catherine. Great to have you with us. Looking forward to this demonstration about Eco Index. And Tim, I can hand to you for some opening introductions. So thank you.
Kia ora, Craig, and tēnā koutou katoa. Apologies, I can't be in the room. Look, this is Navigator X that we're talking about, and as Craig's alluded to, it comes out of work that's been done on the Eco Index, which is work from the Biological Heritage National Science Challenge, and you'll all be aware that the National Science Challenge funding finished earlier this year, and the Eco Index has carried on as a piece of work around ecological restoration. And what we've been able to do is leverage off the fantastic work that's been done in the National Science Challenge to get a tool available for Canterbury. And that's what the Navigator X is. It's a web-based tool. It's all based around ecological restoration. And I won't say too much more because I'm sure that Catherine can explain it much better than myself, but just to introduce Catherine Kirby, who works for Eco Index, and she's going to give us a demonstration of the tool, and then we'll have time for questions after that. I haven't actually coordinated too well with Catherine, but I think we're probably talking at about 20 minutes, half an hour of the introduction. Does that sound right, Catherine? Is that what you were thinking? And then we'll go from there. So, kia ora.
Kia ora, Tim, and tēnā koutou katoa. Pleasure to be with you today. That sounds spot on, Tim. I can do an intro and then answer any questions you have. So it's a pleasure to represent the Eco Index team. I'll start with sharing some slides by way of introduction, and then demonstrate Navigator X for Waitaha Canterbury on the Eco Index website. Let's get rolling. I assume that's visible to everybody?
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay. So as Tim mentioned, Eco Index was initiated by the Bioheritage National Science Challenge, and we provide digital tools to support biodiversity decision making, primarily in the space of reconstructing native ecosystems. We're a very interdisciplinary team, and we're based across Canterbury, Waikato and the Bay of Plenty. And yes, we developed Navigator X for Waitaha Canterbury with some funding support from ECAN. So Navigator X is an online 3D mapping tool. This is a snapshot of it. We're going to dive into much more detail soon, but I just wanted you to have that visual in your mind as I go through some key points about this tool. So it provides spatial information to guide ecosystem reconstruction decision making. So that is where to focus efforts for bringing back nature. And that's for people who want to invest time, money or effort in bringing back native habitats but aren't sure where. When I say ecosystem reconstruction, it's a specific kind of ecological restoration. So restoration can include looking after an existing bush fragment or riparian area or wetland, but we have focused on the areas where no native ecosystems are left or very few, and guiding people who want to rebuild them. So from scratch, maybe often it's in retired pasture. What can they do? Where do they start? What is relevant? And how do I find out more? Those are the sort of questions we set out to answer. And Navigator X provides access to a range of national data sets alongside economic and ecological know-how. And those national data sets have been trimmed to the Canterbury region. Provide spatial information to guide reconstruction decision making. Oh, sorry, we doubled up on that slide. There we go. It's a new tool for decision makers tool belt, but it's not intended to be the only tool. So it's intended to be used alongside other tools, and really importantly, local knowledge. Because we rely on national data sets, we need a little bit of local ground truthing to make sure that things are lining up as predicted or modelled in the various data sets. And it doesn't make any recommendations for existing ecosystems like remnant or planted bush patches. And it also does not provide any council, landowner or private information. So let's take a look, shall we? Can we just confirm you can see the web page now?
Yep, we can see
Right, okay. So this is live and public on the Eco Index webpage. You simply come to our free and open tab, and it's right there, Navigator X for Waisaha Canterbury. And we'll start out by watching the explainer video, because that's a good scene set. Hopefully it all works.
We just can't hear sound, but we can read the word. So.
Apologies for the lack of sound, especially to Katie, who made a special effort to make that work. That was user error on my end, but it is available on our website if you'd like to revisit that. So any questions now before we dive into the actual mapping tool?
Yeah, I think we've got at least one. Councillor McKenzie?
I've just got an issue with you saying you're bringing back nature to rural areas. All you're doing is actually changing the diversity of the nature, because nature's never left. It might have been modified. Probably the only areas in New Zealand where nature has disappeared is in urban areas, and so maybe you could change that heading.
Yes, absolutely. The nuance in the communication is very tricky to nail. Trying to express the idea of the rebuild element of that and bringing it back when without a whole lot of disclaimers and subtext about we're talking about native species that were once present and are still relevant to come. So I definitely take your point, and I agree. In many perspectives, humans are a core part of nature, and we're still very much present. So I don't disagree, and I take your point. Any other questions?
Councillor Ridge?
Yeah, just following up on that, we have lost huge amounts of our indigenous biodiversity in our landscapes, and they've been changed through human intervention. So bringing it back is, I think, it's probably more about giving it a helping hand and understanding what's there and what's not there. My question is, we've had a recent presentations from the Y Connection ecologists who produced really good geophysical map overlays and things like that. Is your system easily amalgamated or used in parallel with other GIS sort of systems? Is that possible to, you obviously got some layers there that you've used. Can it cope with additional layers if required?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Navigator X is one of a pair of tools, and its buddy is Navigator. And Navigator is a GIS tool, which Environment Canterbury owns and can integrate any spatial layers into. Navigator X is the online visualization of that GIS tool. So it isn't super simple to integrate new GIS layers, but if it was desirable, that would be a piece of development work we could do for sure. But in terms of staff perhaps undertaking analysis with all of your available data sets, it's absolutely within the performance functions of Navigator, and that's something they could do with the GIS capability.
Just supplement.
But what we're looking at today.
I was going to say, so I didn't realise it was owned by ECAN, but so it's our Canterbury Maps. What I'm thinking is the Canterbury Maps system, and the data that's held on there in terms of layers is, I know, maybe talking to Tim, is that's easily transferable to add. I'm thinking of, because something I'm keen on looking at is for example, our Ki Uta Ki Tai, mountains to the sea, corridors for our rivers, and what other information apart from what we're seeing here from Catherine that adds into the mix.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick clarification point. ECAN owns a copy of the spatial layers that we call Navigator. Yeah.
Sorry.
Over to you, Tim.
Yes, I mean, what Catherine says is right in the data are available. Any of the layers can be combined. What Navigator X is trying to do is make a simple tool for people who are, looking at a single issue around ecological restoration, and make it simple without overcomplicating things. But there are other information that can be pulled in together.
Vicky, Councillor Southwood.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's really interesting, very cool. I love GIS and 3D models and things like that. I'm curious in terms of how you always got multiple different layers that are, then you have some sort of algorithm that's combining them to come up with where the hotspots are for the most opportunity, etc. So does that factor in sort of the human angle where there are perhaps already, say, catchment groups or local river care groups and things who can then, take up those opportunities? Does that human angle come into it? And also land ownership. So, for example, I guess it's very difficult to know what particular landowners' sense of whether they might like to do something or not. So, where does that come in? Is that part of the factor? Is it really for those people interested to come in and see, does my land happen to have this particular increased opportunity relative to some of my neighbours, say?
Thank you. Great question. The Navigator X mapping tool does not take into account any current contextual information. It's based on national data sets and ecological and economic know-how, and I can explain exactly how everything's calculated if that's of interest, but it doesn't have social elements taken into account. As you can appreciate, those are changing daily, weekly, annually. It is simply for those who want or need to do the work. We've had many interactions where it was expressed that there's a big knowledge gap or access gap, like a good portion of these data sets are publicly available, but only if you have GIS software and the skills to drive them can you make use of those. So we've kind of operationalized the science that is available in this country with the data sets that are available in this country to make a user-friendly tool that many people could use that would otherwise be restricted from their current access points through GIS libraries, for instance. But it does not infer anything about who the landowners' preferences, the local community groups, most recent planting day, things like that. It would be fantastic if it could kind of have that real-time update, especially on progress on the ground, but not at this point. At this point, it's those current data sets, and then they run through a set of rules which were developed by ecologists and economists, and provide a score based on each 10 by 10 meter pixel on the map, and that score is converted to a color. The higher the score, the brighter the color, the better the opportunity for reconstruction is against whichever of the prioritization options you've turned on.
Thank you.
Yeah, did you say 10 by 10 meter? That's incredibly detailed. That's really granular, isn't it? I'm amazed at that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that every data set has great resolution that we're using, but we've scored each pixel, each square, 10 by 10 meter square on the map against the data we have. And that's the best available and often widely used and trusted data sets, like the land cover database, for example.
Cool. Show us more, I reckon.
Yeah, cool. So what we're looking at, you probably already absorbed, is a control panel on the left and a small legend on the right with a 3D map of the Canterbury region. And you first enter this map with a view of all of the prioritization options and information panels for each. So you can explore, toggle those on and off. And they often link to another document or page or more resources, so you can go on a deep dive to understand what you're looking at. The important thing to firstly digest are the colours, and apologies if you have any streaming lag. It's quite quick when you're running it live. I'm not sure how you're experiencing it through Teams. But essentially, the brighter the colour, the better the opportunity is for ecosystem reconstruction to give you a return against any of these prioritization options you've turned on. So for example, if you turn them all off, we're going to go back to satellite imagery, and you may only be interested in riparian benefits. So there's a rule in the processing behind the scenes that says a certain distance either side of the midline of a river is a good place to do reconstruction if you're interested in riparian benefits. Now, on its own, that's not really transformative information, but if you combine it with other things you're interested in, you get an opportunity to hone in on the best bang for buck locations to do a reconstruction of an ecosystem. And that helps with your prioritization, because most projects have a fixed amount of funding, and if there's options on where to go, particularly if you have a large landscape scale perspective, where should I invest this money, time and effort? Adding on layer by layer can help refine the information available to you and assist in the decision making and prioritization. So you'll see as I slowly turn these each on, see an addition of a little bit more colour. And by the time we've considered all of these variables, then you have a few hotspots. And you saw in the video example that this area around Kauai Bush is identified as a potential spot that could be advantageous for ecosystem reconstruction because of a few reasons. It's near an existing fragment of forest. It's in land that's already protected because it's a dock reserve. It would provide a protective buffer for this existing patch. It doesn't score well on land stability because this is a flat area, but nevertheless, it's quite highly scoring and therefore brightly coloured. We also, maybe I'll pause there for any questions.
Don't think there's any at the moment, Catherine. Keep going, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, we can as you saw in the video, tilt and drag and rotate, and we found that really helps people calibrate what they're seeing with what they know of their own landscapes or their region. And that's really a strong point of difference in terms of user friendliness of this compared to GIS software, where you need those required skills and you can't really explore a valley by clicking and dragging like you can with this mapping tool. So let's zoom out a little bit, and we're going to look at some contextual information that adds to the tool belt for decision making. I'm going to turn all of these off and turn on the contextual information tab, where you can see eco-index catchments, which require a big zoom out. These are based on the Ministry for the Environment catchments, with some simplification and amalgamation of small coastal sea draining catchments. You can see they're the black lines. Obviously the Canterbury region is available, territorial authority boundaries. We can also have a conversation with this mapping tool about connectivity corridors and stepping stones. Here's some Kyoto Kitai mountains to the sea corridors, which our ecologists have put together based on their knowledge and the data sets we're visualizing, as sort of a conversation piece to get around the table and perhaps bring people across the region together in this idea of corridors. It's also highlighted some stepping stones, which are also ecologically beneficial for species that don't need a solid corridor to move, but perhaps a bird that can navigate across the region might use stepping stones instead. We also have some information about the current land cover based on these categories. I'll also turn satellite imagery back on. So it just classifies the area into, based on the land cover database, which was last updated in 2018. Bit of a caveat there, but we're hoping for a new land cover database in the next 6 to 12 months. And we can see where the mature ecosystems already are, where the physical reconstruction opportunity is, just based on there's not currently a native ecosystem here, and it's also not currently a built-up area or a transport area. And then regenerating ecosystems as well. That helps us understand some of the recommendations that are available under the prioritisation options. And then if you're a user who's chosen an area that would give good return for your ecosystem reconstruction investment, you might want to understand, well, what do I reconstruct here? And this colour-coded map shows which native ecosystems would be expected to be in Canterbury had people never arrived. Now this one is also a public data set, and it's modelled based on physical features like soil type, topography, and information about remnant and original ecosystem types, but it hasn't been adjusted for climate change yet, unfortunately. You can hover over and learn about the different native ecosystem types which may be considered when you're planning a reconstruction project. And I've also found it's a really helpful snapshot into the diversity of native ecosystems that one could consider across a region. And that is about all I've got for you in terms of introduction to Navigator X. I welcome any questions, and remember it's available publicly and on our website anytime for you to explore or to refer people to.
Thank you, Catherine. A really amazing piece of work. I want to go on it now and have a go myself. Any councillors have any questions or thoughts at the moment? I think there's a few councillors that are already on it, actually.
Fantastic.
Councillor Robinson, who's online, you've got a question?
Hi, thanks for that. It's hard to see remotely. However, I can understand, how it works and everything, and it's very exciting. Is there any opportunity or is there any incentive to look at it as something for the coastal environment? I know there's work being done to some extent. I'm not sure if you're involved or others, but with regards to the mapping and species that are also indigenous off the coast and the CMA area. I just find it really interesting. No, thank you.
Just to clarify, do you mean marine environments or like duneland?
Yeah, just in that, so sort of like the CMA, so inward, landward of the coast and a little bit of the coastline. So, indigenous birds and some species, even like I'm not sure. I missed a little bit of your presentation. I'm sorry. So I'm not sure if it showed some of the lakes and, like Lake Waihora and some of the biodiversity around there. Kaiteriti Spit and the likes. That's that bit.
Yeah, I think I understand. We haven't expanded to consider to incorporate coastal and marine areas, except for those native ecosystems that. So if it's terrestrial, it's in. If it's marine or freshwater, it hasn't been included, simply because the data sets are not available on a national scale. However, in the back end, with the data layers that your GIS analysts have access to at ECAN, they can integrate and cross-analyze, if you like, any data sets you have on coastal zones and bird species, etc. So that wouldn't be automatically displayed on Navigator X, this live mapping tool. However, that we could be open to that conversation as an addition to this map, to this tool, to bring in more data to make it a richer resource. Does that cover your question?
Yeah, it does, and that's a very interesting opportunity, actually. I think it would be really interesting.
Sorry, Genevieve. Can I just jump in? Like that mapping that was done recently, Tim, especially around the peninsula. I mean, that would be pretty interesting to see mapped in some way. I know it might take some time, but and I'm sure people will be interested in that. And then the other one I was thinking is a national data set is the National Freshwater Fish database, of course. Now, I don't know how you'd turn that into a scored model, but obviously there's been fish data collected for over 100 years in that database of where the presence and absence and distribution of native fish. That'd be really interesting. But I know, another big project, but it would be really amazing to have those sort of that data available in time. So, yeah, it's great to know that it could be done. It just would be a time frame thing of how it would be done. So, sorry, Genevieve, where you go?
No, I was just actually on the same wavelength as you, Craig. Actually, with regards to even native fisheries and things like that are either, just native as in their own right, or some that are commercial. It's just good to see where things are, so spatially what you could be interfering with. And also, and we're on a tangent then. It threw me off. I had a question and I can't remember.
We can come back to you, Genevieve. That's all good. When you think about it, put your hand back up. Any other councillors with any other thoughts, comments, feedback? Greg?
I just want to say thank you. Really awesome to watch this. I'm one of the ones who has immediately gone to have a wee play. I think it's fantastic. Awesome.
Thank you, Greg. Genevieve, have you remembered?
Yeah, I was just thinking it's a very good opportunity to partner with the likes of like databases held by others like Department of Conservation and others, because they're all verified data and it's just a case of plugging in. So yeah, that's an opportunity. That's all I had to say. Cheers. Cool,
thanks, Genevieve. Anyone else? I think we're pretty happy with what we've seen, Catherine. Really amazing work, and I think a bunch of us will probably go and have a look ourselves and have a little explore. What is next, I suppose, for what you're doing? Is this sort of the finished product and that's it, or have you got more work planned going forward? And Tim, are we funding any other work? That'd be interesting to know.
I'll hand to Tim to talk about other ECAN related mahi.
Yeah, Sure. Thanks, Catherine. The Eco Index work we are continuing on, and this is really for use as in a planning tool for thinking about. It's to pull together so that it can be used in the RPS context and the Land and Water Regional Plan context. So providing baseline information, and that's what Catherine was talking about. A lot of the GIS layers that sit behind this are available, and to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what's on Canterbury Maps yet, but certainly it's always our intention that what's available internally is available externally as well through Canterbury Maps. So that's some continuing work. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to talk about where sort of Eco Index is going generally across the country.
Well, there is something exciting you might like to know about, and it relates to this land cover snapshot, which, as I mentioned, is based on the land cover database circa 2018. We're working on remote sensing ecosystem detectors, so AI that can look across really high resolution satellite imagery and tell you where there's native forest, where there's wetlands, and with time, which native forests they are, which native ecosystems actually of all categories, so that we can get far more up-to-date information, because we have regularly hiccups with this land cover snapshot information. People say, well, that's saying there is a forest there and it's now gone, or vice versa. It's not reflecting the massive effort I've put in my area to replant 20 hectares, so it's not so helpful. We're moving into the space of being able to give far more regular updates. So that's up and coming, and we're very excited about it, because it could be a game changer in terms of understanding what's on the landscape and independently measuring and verifying progress. So that's pretty cool.
Sounds pretty amazing. Tim, one question. I mean, obviously the RPS Land and Water Plan is really important to link this to. I mean, the Canterbury Biodiversity Strategy that we're going through too, and of course the NPSIB. Monitoring that we need to do. I mean, I know the land cover database is a real important indicator of that. So I'm assuming this sort of database can help us with that work as we go working with the community going forward in terms of what's possible in different areas. So that's
absolutely.
Cool.
No, absolutely. And the tool that Catherine just outlined there, I think, will be really important for some of that about keeping up to date on some of the things that are happening. Because, the land cover database is 6 years out of date, and it's probably more like 8 by the time it's been done. So that'll be important.
And Tim, you might know this. I know that David Murphy was working on a project with the Whakakohanga Kōrero Group, which was the old name was the Selwyn Waihora Active Restoration Forum, or SWARF, I think it was called. And I don't know if he was working with Eco Index, but it was a map more about the other side that we talked about before in terms of the social part of it and all the different groups, including the catchment collectives, sustainable agriculture, Ellesmere sustainable agriculture, etc., and all the work that everyone's done, especially in the Selwyn Waihora zone, about trying to map all those activities. Is this connected, or could it be connected with the work that David was doing?
It's not connected in the sense of Eco Index weren't involved in that work, but it is in the sense that that's another layer of information that can be pulled in. So
cool.
So that is particularly highlighting where the projects are, a little bit of information around the projects, some of which are restoration, some of which are protection and things. So it's information that can be pulled together, and I think you're quite right. It provides a social context to the data that this would easily sit alongside.
Because I'd love to see the map that Catherine showed us overlaid with that map would be unreal, actually. So in terms of next steps
Yeah.
for Sal and Waihora Zone, it would be pretty amazing in terms of restoration. So I might like to see that one. Grant had another question.
Just a question. Your 3D views that you get actually based on contours and things like that. Do you? But I couldn't see a layer on your control panel, a topographical information with roads and things like that. Is that level of detail available in the plan view rather than the 3D view?
Not currently. No, we opted for simplification, but if that was something that ECAN found to be really useful, I think it's just a publicly available layer that could be popped on top in terms of roads and place names.
Because I was thinking
currently
from the contour side of things, it gives you enables you to have a look at the catchment and the rivers that you talked about where water's potentially flowing to, all that sort of stuff, really. Anyway, thanks.
Cool. I think that's all the questions we have. So thank you once again, Catherine and Tim, of course, for bringing Catherine to us and the work of Eco Index, and that we've helped support the Waitaha project there. So thank you so much. Awesome work. And look forward to hearing about next steps or how we can use this information going forward. So thank you. Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Got it.
Thank you. So our next session, everybody, is not until 3:45, which is hearings on the dangerous dam policy. I think you're all aware of that. Yep.